Hey, what's going on, guys? So in this video I'm gonna create an expense tracker using React.js library and the Firebase real-time database. So I'm gonna build this tracker with a login and register system where the users can register an account and they can have their own expense tracker. So here's the demo. I don't have any users right now, so I'm just gonna create an account. Click create an account. Here I'm gonna choose a name, Victor for example, an email, say admin@mail.com, and the password. Alright, click register, and once I click register and it passed the validation, it's gonna show me the tracker component. So here I have a form I can add. I have latest transactions. I don't have anything at the moment, that's why it's empty, but I can add a new one. So for example, let's say I'm gonna add a deposit. So here where the type is, I can choose the expense or the deposit, and then I put the amount of money and then just click add transaction. So I'm gonna add some money first. Let's say an ATM deposit. Click deposit, 500, click add transaction, and I have the transaction here. Now here I have the amount of money, the current amount of money in my account. So if I add an expense, a transaction, I paid for coffee, let's say, and here I choose expense, and the coffee was $5, and I click add transaction. I have it here now, and I have with a different color, which is -5. And now in my account I have $495. And now I'm gonna just go ahead and click on exit. I'm gonna click exit. I'm gonna create a new account. So even if I refresh the page, for example, I can click create an account, a new account, let's say John, and then johnmail.com, and the password, click register. Alright, it's just a warning from Chrome that the password is weak. I just put 6 ones. Alright, so here I have a new dashboard. I don't have any transactions. It's a new user with 0 balance. So I'm gonna add ATM deposit, put deposit, let's say $100, click add transaction. And even if I refresh though, I refresh the page, and if I'm logged in, I'm gonna see the data from the current users data. So I have the latest transactions. Now if I click exit, log in with my account, first one, wrong password. Right, click enter. I have my name here, I have my balance and everything that's assigned to this user. Alright guys, so that being said, I'm just gonna go ahead and get started. I'm gonna create everything from everything fresh. I'm gonna write everything from scratch. If you want to follow along with me, there's gonna be a link in the description from where you can grab the source code. And yeah, that being said, I'm just gonna go ahead and create a new React.js app. So I'm gonna type in here sudo npm create React app, and I will name it React expense. Alright, forgot the password. Okay, so what's going on here? Usage npm, blah 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 blah. So I should probably use npx. Okay, alright, so I'm just gonna pause the video and I'll resume whenever the app is installed. Alright, so this is done. Let me open this folder. Alright, and I'm gonna open my VS Code in this one. And like always, whenever I'm working, there's a new version of VS Code, so I have to wait for this to download. Alright, so it opened my VS Code in my project folder. Now here I'm gonna just go ahead and get started from my index.html from the public folder, and I'm gonna remove this comments, just get rid of them. And here I'm just going to replace the title with a expense tracker, and I will save it and close it. I'm gonna open a new terminal here, so I'm gonna type in npm start just to start the local machine. This is taking a while. Alright. Okay, this is the previous one. This is from the demo, so I'm just gonna keep it here open as a just an example to follow. And now if I open the localhost to the 3000 port, this is what I see. So this is what we are supposed to see, of course, because it's a new React.js app. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to open my source folder. I will create a new folder here, and I will name it components. Okay, and here, so I'm just gonna start with the UI first. I want to build the login and the registration form, just the UI without using the APIs from Firebase. So I'm gonna create this components folder, and now in this components folder I'm gonna create a new file, and I will name it main.js. I will also create another CSS file, and I will name it main.css. This is going to be the styling for this component. And also in the components folder, I'm going to create another folder which is going to be forms, and here I'm going to have two different forms. So let me do that here. Forms, and in this folder I'm going to have let's say I'm gonna have the login.js component and the register.js component. So I'm gonna do here login.js and also login.css. Alright, and I will have another component register.js. Alright, looks good. I'm gonna have, so these two components are gonna be pretty similar. They're gonna use the same CSS classes and stuff. So I'm gonna leave just the login CSS file, and here I'm gonna write the CSS for this one. But before I am gonna start working on this with these files, I'm gonna edit my app.js file from the source folder. You know, there's app.js. So I want to remove the logo from here. I want to, let me think, what else we need here. The logo. Okay, I'm gonna get rid of everything from here. Everything. Like this, it's gonna be empty. And what I'm going to do now here, I'm going to import the main.js component, and I will call it here. But before I do that, I want to create this main component just to export it as a default component. So keep it like this for now, and let's go to main.js, and here let's import React and the component from React. Oops, like this, and also import main.css file because I'm gonna add some styling there. I will have to import the login and the registration files and everything, but I'm gonna do that later on. Now here I want to type in export default class main extends component, and here I'm gonna have a, well, first we should have a render function like this, and then here a return function, and this is gonna say I don't know, I'm gonna have an empty wrapper, and I'm just gonna say main for now, like this. I will save it, I will go back here, and I will import it from my app.js. So I'll have import main from components slash main semicolon, and I will just call it in our return in my return function. So I'm gonna have here main like this. Alright, so if I save it now, if I go back to my application, I should have this main here. I'm just gonna let me just zoom it in a little bit. That's too much. Maybe just like this. And I'll minimize this. So this is what I have in the main.js, app.js, and what I have in the main.js. This is all I'm gonna have here. That's gonna be it. Alright, so this works. I'm gonna close this app.js. Also, just to think, in app CSS, in the app CSS here, I'm gonna delete everything from here. Thinking, app CSS. Yeah, I'm gonna delete everything from here, and I'll just leave a body. I'm gonna add some styling for the body. Body. Yeah, let's do that, sure. So I'm gonna add some styling for the body. So there's gonna be body like this, and a background color. It's going to be, say, 5F9C, and the color, text color, is going to be 3C4L43. We'll save it, close app.js. Just make sure everything works fine here. So we added a background to the body section and the text color, which is kind of like dark. But we will add the styling and other divs and everything in the main.js file. Right, so this is our main. So here we import main CSS, we import React, and as I already said, we're going to import the login and register. But before we do that, I want to assign a state. So I'm gonna have state here. User is gonna be 1 by default, and loading is going to be true. Alright, this is the initial state. I'm gonna use this just to I'm gonna use this later on in the application. This is gonna be all the user data. So as long as it's 1, that means that the user is not logged in, and as long as the loading is true, that means we didn't get a response from the Firebase. Just remember that. If I'm assuming, I know you don't understand what's this for yet, but we will work with this later on in the application and you'll understand. So what I want to do now is just to create that form. So here in the return function, we're going to add some CSS. I'm gonna add some classes. Sorry about that. Alright, so here I'm gonna have a div class name, and the class name is going to be main block. And in this div class name, I will want to import one of the forms, but I will import one of the forms only whenever I will click that button. Because if you see here, I have this form, the submit button, and then I have not register, click create an account. So if I click here, the form switches from the login to the register and vice versa. So this is what I want to do here. So boom, boom, boom. Okay, for now, let's just create the style for the main block. Alright, oops. I'll leave it block here like this, and I'm gonna open my main CSS, and wherever I have, I'm gonna add the main block. So the main block is gonna have a border radius 5 pixels, and then we will have box sizing, border box, and then text align center, and then the background color is gonna be white, and then the padding 20 pixels, and then width, the width 100%, and then max width 350 pixel, and margin on top 100 pixels, and auto on the sides. And then I have a display table, and what else? I'm gonna add a box shadow 4 pixels, 8 pixels, 0 space RGBA. In the parentheses I'm gonna add 0.2, and the second shadow is going to be 6 pixels, 20 pixels, 0 RGBA. In the parentheses I'm gonna have 0.90, like this. That's just to make sure everything is right here. This needs to be R. Okay, so if I save it now, we have imported here, block is here, and if we go back here, that's what we have right now. Okay, now it's time to add the form. So in order for us to add the form, let's say the registration form, we have to create this form in our register.js component. So I'm gonna go ahead and import it here, or login. Let's import first the login. We'll just create a login form. So we have login from, here we have forms/login, like this. And now let's open the login.js file, and in our login.js file we want to import React, of course, import the login CSS file. So we have import React and component from React. Alright, and then here we have, well, actually let's import also the login.css, like this. And then we have class login extends component, and here we have the state, guys. So we have state, and we assign, and we will have email, password, and fire errors. So we have email empty by default, password empty by default, and fire errors empty by default. So I'm gonna use this state just you know, for the fields, for the form fields. Now below here we will have render and return, render, return. Here I'm gonna have an empty wrapper like this, and here I'm gonna have the actual form. So there's the form tag, input type, text, class name. It's going to be reg field, and placeholder, let me actually do like this, bum. So this is gonna be, what else, placeholder. I said placeholder is gonna be email and name email. Close it. So we want to add, this is the login, we should add another one. Oops, I shouldn't get this form tag, but now another one. This is for the password. This is type password. What else we have here? Class name reg field, the placeholder, let's say password, and we have a name, password. Alright, so the next one is gonna be the submit button. So we have input type submit. Ooh, Victor, where are you going, bro? Okay, input type submit, class name. We'll have a class name submit btn, which means submit button, and the value, enter, capital letters, like this. So if I save this, don't forget, Victor, we have to export it. Default login. Alright. Okay, now we import it in our main.js, and here wherever we have our main block, I'm just gonna call it here. So there is gonna be login like this, and save it. And if I go back here, we have this form, but we should add some styling though. So let's open our login CSS file. We import it here, make sure you have it here like this. And in our login.css file, we want to add some styling. So we want to add some styling for the registration field, like this. We will have a width 100 pixels. We'll have a background color, and the background color is going to be F7, color black. Border 1 pixel solid, and DDD, kind of a darker grayish padding. We'll have a 15 pixels padding, a box sizing border box, and a font size of 15 pixels like this. Right, let's save it. Let's see what we've got here. So we've got these fields here, you know, we have the style CSS, beautiful in the place. Now let's add some styling for the submit button. So here below we have submit button, and here we have width 100%. We have background, no, actually background, just the background, 45 F9C, and then we have border 0 because we don't have any border on the submit button. Color, text color is gonna be white. All right. Next. Padding 15 pixels. Margin on top is gonna be 10 pixels, 000, and then we have font size 15 pixels. Boom. Oh, come on, Victor, come on, bro, what's going on with you? And the cursor pointer. So let's save it. Let's see what's going on here. All right, so we have this form, looks similar to our demo. We have this form submit button in place. That's good. One thing that's missing is this line, not registered, create an account. So let's do that really quick. We will actually do that in our main.js component. So right here below our login component, wherever we call it. Let's see. Okay, so here we will have, let's add a spam. Yep, spam class name, and let's do underline like this. And here we will have not registered, and we will have a button say button class name, and the class name is going to be link button, and here we will have create an account. Create an account. I'll save it. Let's go back. Let's take a look. Now we should add some styling here to the create an account. So to add some styling here, we have to add this underline class in the main CSS, where we can add it in the, let's do it in the login CSS file. So here, because everything is related to the form, so just put everything here. So we'll have underline class, and underline we want to have text align center, and we also want to have a margin, margin 7 pixels on top, right, bottom, left, and then display a block. Alright, display block, and we also have another button class, link button, so we want to do that as well. Link button, this is not gonna have border, but we have a background color, and let's do it unset. We want to unset the background color from the default button right now. Text, decoration, underline. I'm not sure if we, yeah, let's put just in case, and then we will have a color, and the color is going to be 3C4043, and here padding 0 and margin 0 as well. So let's save it. Let's go back and take a look. So everything looks fine now here, except we should add some space. So let's go back to the login, nope, main, and let's add some space. This is a okay, let's do this and like this. Let's see if it's adding space. Okay, so this added space. Alright, now we should build the functionality. We should have this switcher, because if I click on this button now, nothing happens. So I want to be able to click on this button and to switch from the login form to the register form. And to do that, I have to create the register.js. So now register.js, we want to do pretty much the same thing as we have in the login. So I'm just gonna copy everything from the login.js, and I will paste it in the register.js. And here, login CSS. Okay, let's leave this here. React component React. Just rename the login to register. What else? Okay, we have display name empty by default, and here we'll have another field. We will add another field for the name. Alright, no, here we'll have name placeholder your name. So we save it like this, and let's just make sure everything works fine. So let's import it in our main.js file component, register, register, and now here where we have login, let's replace with register, just to make sure that the form of login is not defined. Okay, so don't forget to replace in the register.js the name that you export. It should be registered. So let's go back, and now this is the register form that looks like this, so this is good. Now what we want to do here, let's put back the login. Alright, and now here we want to create a switcher. So whenever we will click on this create an account button, we will switch from login to register form. And to do that, we should create a method, and this method is going to be called form switcher. So let's create it here. Form switcher, say switcher. Okay, we will get a parameter which is going to be the action. So what action we want to click on? We clicked on the login or the register button, and okay, let's have it here. I'm just gonna console log the action for now. So here where we have our button, I'm gonna add an event. So this is gonna be on click, and whenever somebody is gonna click on this button, I want to call this method we just created. So it's gonna be this dot form switcher, and the parameter is gonna be a register. Let's say it's gonna be a register. This, let's say, we will also have to add another state, guys, here, but let's do it for now like this. Okay, register, like this, and apostrophes. Let's save it. Let's go back here. I'm gonna inspect, open my console. So if I click on the create an account, I get the register here, which means that the method is being called, everything works fine. Alright, now here in my state, I want to add a new state, which is gonna be form switcher. Form switcher, and let's do it false by default. Alright, now here false, false, false. Now here we want to change this according to the state, according to the current state, because if it's false, that means we show the login form. If it's true, we show the register form. So here in our where we have this stuff where the parameter is, we want to add like a new statement where the action is. So here I'm gonna have something like this. If it's different than this state dot form switcher, if it's different, that means if this is false, then we want to send a parameter with the register word, otherwise login. Okay, otherwise login. Alright, let's save it. Let's go back here. I don't know why I closed this. So if I click create button, it's register, and if I click create button register, okay, let's see in the login main, true. Okay, so what we should do now, whenever we call this method, I want to update the state here. So I'm gonna have, let's do below the console log. So we're gonna I'm gonna have this set state, and I'm gonna have form switcher, and I'm gonna switch this if the action is the parameter. If the action is equal to register, then I make it true, otherwise false. Alright, let's save it. Let's go back here. Just wanna take a look here at the state. So this is false. If I click create an account, this becomes true, which is good. And console log get register. Now if I click one more time, I get login. If I click one more time, I get register. So in this way we're switching the state. Okay, so this works good. Now I have this state hook that I can use to output this form. So now what I want to do here is the following. I'm gonna have curly brackets like this. I'll put everything in the curly brackets. So here I'm gonna have kind of an if statement. So if this state form switcher if it's different, then if this, so what it does, it checks, is this form switcher false? If it's false, then I show this. Okay, if it's false, then I'm showing, what am I showing here? Or this actually needs to be below main block, okay, this needs to be in the div here. Alright, so I'm gonna crop it from here. I'll paste it in the div like this. Okay, alright. This login needs to be above it here. So here I'm gonna take this span in the parentheses. So this state form switcher, if this is false, then we show this. Otherwise we will show the same thing, except we won't say not register, but this is gonna be whenever we switch the login form to the register form. Here we want to show have an account, and here we will put sign in here. Okay, sign in here. Let's see if everything is fine. Okay, we have this span. A span is missing. We should have a span here. Alright, so this looks right. Let's go back, click on create an account, and we see that this stuff is switching. The form is not switching yet, but this stuff is switching, which is good. Alright, this is good, because if we refresh the page, the login forms appear. So now I want to switch the forms, and in order for me to switch the forms, I actually usually do it in this way. I create a new const form, and I assign to this const form the login or register form using the form switcher state. So form, so if this state form switcher is false, then I assign the login. Otherwise I assign the register component. And now I get this form, and I replace the login component with curly brackets and form, and I save it and go back. If I click create an account, it's gonna switch to the register form. Sign in here, switch to the login form. Actually, let's change this enter button, because I didn't do that. Let's go back to register.js, and where we have the submit button, let's say register. Alright, so if I refresh the page, click on create an account, we have the full registration form. Sign in, we have the full login form. Okay, so the UI for the user system is ready. Now what we want to do now is to start working with Firebase to connect this one to the API Firebase database, and to be able to register users in real-time database. Alright, so to do that, let's open our let's go to firebase.google.com. make sure you log in with the user. After you log in, click on go to console, and here create a new project. Let's name it Code tutorial. Create, continue, enable Google Analytics this project, continue, I accept, use the default settings for sharing Google Analytics data. Alright, whatever. Click project, create project. This is gonna load. Alright, so just click continue. Then go to settings from left side, click project settings. Scroll down where it's saying your apps, and choose the web app, and create a new my web app. say I could also set up Firebase hosting for this app. No, register app. And basically what we do here, we're just getting the credentials for our API, for our database. So now let's go back to our, let's see, our app, and in the source folder, let's create another folder, and let's name it config. And here let's create a new file, and let's name it fire.js. And now in this fire.js we want to paste, not to paste, but like here we want to use the configuration. So first of all, we should create a component, and we'll create like a normal component, import Firebase. Actually, before we do that, I forgot to mention one thing though. We should install the Firebase package first. So to install the Firebase package, we should type in sudo npm install -save Firebase. Alright, it's asking me for a password. It's asking me for passwords though, just because I have Linux Ubuntu installed on my Windows 10 machine, so that's why I'm using it here in the terminal. I'm using it with git bash right here. Alright, so I'm just gonna pause it, guys, because it's taking too long. Alright, so let's type in npm start. Let's start our machine. Alright, let's go back. Where is the browser? Just make sure it works fine. Okay. Alright, so I stopped here. Import Firebase from. So we type in here, we want to import Firebase from Firebase, and also to create a const variable. So let me type in Firebase, and then we have const config. Alright, and then below here we have const fire, and we assign to the fire, we assign Firebase dot initialize app. Initialize app, and as a parameter we get the config variable, which is a constant. And then here we export default, export default fire, like this, default fire. And now we go back to our Firebase, and let's copy everything from here, copy, and paste it here in your object. Boom, like this. Okay, app ID, measurement ID, blah 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 blah. Save it. Go back to, so where we stop at the login register. This is what we want to do. We want to connect our web to Firebase. So we have this in place. We copy it and then click continue to console. Now back to your click on the authentication on the left side, sidebar right there. What else? Authentication, get started, and click on email password, edit configuration, email link, and blah blah. Allow users to sign up with their email address and password hours. Okay, so click here, enable this one, the first one, click save. Alright, templates, sign in method. Okay, so this is good for now here. Alright, now let's go back to our app, and let's add some methods in our, let's start with the login. So with the login.js file, let's continue with this file. So now here, wherever we have our state, we got the fire errors. That's the errors that come from Firebase whenever we submit the form. So let's add a method that's gonna handle the change from our form, and then whenever we click on submit button, it's gonna send the data to Firebase and then get a response from Firebase. Well, logically it would be better to start with the register because we don't have any accounts yet. So let's start with the register form. Here's the same thing. So let's create a component which is gonna be handle change. Not a component, a method. Handle change. All right, and we're gonna get the event, and then so this is gonna be a method. This is gonna be a function, and then here we will update the state. So we will have this set state like a normal updating state process kind of thing. So we have here e.target.name, and we want to update with e.target.value. Okay, so make sure that the names you have in your fields match with the state from here, because this is what we're using to update the state. Okay, so having this in place, now we can use this method to add it here as for the on change. So let's add on change event, and here we have curly brackets, and we have this handle change like this. And let's add the same thing for the on the value, and the value, it's gonna have this state dot display name. So wherever we have in our state is gonna be displayed here. So I'm just gonna copy them and I'll paste them where I have the email. So here I'm just gonna have email, just make sure it matches with the state, and then we have the password. So paste it here, password. So let's save it. Let's go back to our app. Where is it? Here. Let's go back to our app. I'm gonna inspect and just click on the components, login. You may not have these tabs though. This is a an extension for Google Chrome, so you can install it. Just search for React Chrome extension, and you will install it, and you will have these 2 tabs here, which is showing you the state, the props, and all this other stuff. So to do that, I'm just checking the login state. So if I type in something here where the email is, nothing changes. Oh, that's just click create an account. So okay, so where we have the state, it's here. So if I choose a name, type a name Victor, it doesn't work. Let's see what's wrong here. What is wrong here? Something is wrong here. Okay, so we have the name, your name. Okay, so the name needs to be display name, because that's how the state is. So we have display name here, this state handle change. Okay, alright, so everything is fine now, it should work. So if I choose here, click on register, choose Victor, okay, now works. Email, let's say admin, and the password, but this doesn't work. The form for submission doesn't work yet because we should create another method. So to create, okay, so we have this one in place now. Now whenever we will click on this submit button, we should send all this data to Firebase. So to do that, we should create a new method which is gonna be named as register. And so here, wherever the input is, we will have on click. So whenever we will click on the submit button, we will call this dot register method, right? And now we have to create this method. We have to create it, let's create it above the handle change, actually below it's fine too. So here we have a register. We will grab the event from here, and we will use the event to prevent the default submission. So we have prevent default. This is gonna prevent the form to be submitted, to be reloaded, the entire page to be reloaded. And now here we will use some Firebase hooks. So we will have fire.auth.create user with email and password. So we have create user with email and password, and here we have the data, which is the email and the password, as parameters. So we have this state dot email, and the second one is this state dot password. And then next we have dot then, so we have user as a parameter here, right? This is an ES6 function. And now here we see we create the user, and then we get the user kind of function, and the user is the parameter. So we have a variable which is current user, and we assign the current user to this variable. So we have fire.auth current user, right? And then after that we use the current user. So we have current user variable. This is an object, because whenever we assign the current user to this variable, this is a whole huge object with the data. So from here we have the current user dot update profile. So whenever the profile is updated, we get the display name to this state dot display name. Alright, and then here, after we have all this stuff, we have dot catch. So if it didn't work, so if the connection, so if for some reason the user couldn't be created, and it detects an error, then this is what we will output. Not we will output, but we'll just update the state. So we have set state fire errors to error.message, like this. Alright, let me see if I'm missing anything else. So seems like everything is fine. Let's save it. Oh, there's an error. Okay, display name this set state failed to compile React unprotected token expected. Okay, somewhere error, blah 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 blah, catch error. So okay, this needs to be removed from here, and it needs to be here. Okay, let's save it, and there's still another error. Okay, unexpected blah blah 26 24 in the register.js 26. Okay, this is the error. Sorry about that, guys. It's late, and it's just I'm a little sleepy in here. Okay, if I click create an account, and if I click register, I have the fire error state updating here, which means that it gets an error. So if I put like this, email address is badly formatted. So this is good. We see that this the connection to the server works. Everything's fine because we get a response from the server. So what we should do now, we should output these errors, this state fire errors, in here above our form. Wait, no, let's do this in our render. So in our render we will have a let, and this is gonna be error notification. We assign this state dot fire errors. So this is actually a new statement. So if this state fire errors, if it's not empty, then we want to output div class name, and here we will have error. We close it, and then here we have this state fire error. So this state dot fire errors like this. Alright, so we have this in place, div class name error, this state Firebase errors. Otherwise we output null, and we assign all this stuff to the error notification. Come on, Victor. Notification. You probably guys already saw it. Okay, so notification, and paste it here. I save it. Now if I go back and click register, I can see the errors above the form. So here I have a class. Now I want to add some styling to this class, and in order to do that I should go to let me think where we can add that. We can add in the main CSS. Let's do that in the main CSS. So here below our main block we will have errors. So we have padding 10 pixels, and then we have background color. Background color, it's going to be FEEAEA. It's kind of like a pink color, and then we have a border 1 pixel solid, and here we will have FADADB, and then we have margin bottom 10 pixels, and then we have border radius 3 pixels like this. We'll save it. Let's go back to our application, and we can see that this styling here it looks good. Okay, so this thing works. Let's try to register an account. So we'll say Victor and the password. Now I click register, and if I go back to users, I can see that the user has been registered here, but here it doesn't have anything. Now what we should do here, we should remove this. Whenever the user is logged in, we should replace the entire form with something, with a dashboard or something. So to do that, let's go back to our main.js file, and now here let's import the Firebase configuration from our config folder. So let's do that right below our main CSS file. So we'll have import fire from so what we have here, go back, step config /fire. Okay, and go have fire, and now we should create a, okay, let's see, we got this. We should create a component did mount, which is gonna update, so the component did mount will call another method, which is gonna be auth listener, and that method is gonna check if the user is logged in or not. So if the user is logged in, then we don't show all this crap from here. If it's not, then we show this crap to the forms. Okay, so to do that, we should create this method. So we'll have component did mount. We don't have any parameters, and whenever this happens, and we call another component from this class, which is gonna be auth listener, like this. And now this auth listener, it's going to be below, so we'll have auth listener, and here we will check. So we'll get first fire dot auth dot on auth state changed. So on the authentication state changes, then we corrupt the user. Alright, and here we check if user, so if there is any data in the user, then we update the state. So we have this set state, and we update the user state with the user data we get from Firebase. Otherwise, we set the state, set state user with null, like this. Alright, so user with null, semicolons here, don't forget about that. And whenever we update the state, so that means that the user won't be one anymore. It's gonna update the user state. So let's save it for now. Let's go back and check the user state. If I refresh it, click on the main, I can see here the user is not one anymore, but I get a bunch of stuff, you know, because the Firebase assigned to this user state some data, a huge object. And now having this data, knowing that having this data from the Firebase, we can do a trick here. Let's create another component in our components folder, and I will create a folder and I will name it tracker, and here I will create another file and I will name it tracker.js. Here I'm gonna import React from React, and I'm gonna have a class, and this is gonna be tracker. Actually, I forgot to add here component, so class tracker extends component, and here I'm gonna have a render function, and I'm gonna have return, oops, in the return. So here I'm gonna have just I'm gonna say tracker, like this. And now I'm gonna export it, export tracker. I will save it, and now I'll import this tracker here. So tracker/tracker, and now I'll use this tracker here. So first of all, I'm gonna check in my wrapper over here, curly brackets, one like this, and close it at the end. So here I'm gonna check if it's different than this state user. So if this user is empty, so if the user state is empty, then we show all this stuff from here. Otherwise, we call the tracker component, this one. So I'm gonna save it, and if I go back here, we get the tracker here. You see, we don't see the login form anymore. Even if I refresh it, we don't see that stuff. Alright, so this is it's showing now the stuff, the dashboard. So but if I delete this user, for example, from here, I'm gonna delete it, and if I refresh it here, it's gonna show the login registration form. So let's register another account now. I'm gonna register a new account. Okay, and now in our tracker I want to add a new I want to add a button for logout. So to add the logout button, let's open our tracker.js, and here above the render I'm gonna create a new state, not state, but like a new method, and this new method is gonna be a button, logout button. I'm just thinking, logout button. Well, let's do this. So here we will have logout, no parameters, and here we have fire, auth, dot sign out, just like this. But don't forget to import the Firebase here. So we have to import fire from, oops, 2 steps back, config/fire, like this. Right, so we save it, and now in our tracker here, let's actually do a logout button instead of showing tracker. So to add the logout button, we should add a button tag. So on click, let's see, on click we want to call this logout button. So how we do that? Okay, on click, we do this. Okay, so on click we will do this dot logout, this dot logout, and here we will say exit. So let's save it and let's go back and see. Here we have this button here. If I click exit, it's gonna redirect me back here, redirects me back here. So if I refresh the page, but you see, if I refresh the page, you can still see this exit button here, and all this stuff, which is not really good. I want to add a spinner, and we're gonna add that later on in the app. So but before we do that, let's just create the login form so we will be able to log in. Now let's go back to our login.js, and here is basically pretty much the same thing as in the register, but the only difference is the method. So let's actually add all this stuff here in our input first. So we'll have the value this dot state dot email, and we have the on change. On change we will call a method that we have to create. So the method is going to be handle change. So let's copy this stuff and paste it in our password field, except here needs to be password like this. Alright, we have password. Now let's create this handle change method. And handle change method, we're going to get the event. Alright, handle change, and then here, like in the previous, we just update the state, e dot target dot name, and what else we have here, e dot target dot value, like this. So if I save it, I go back and just check this state. So if I put admin and something in the password, you can actually see the password in the state. Wow, this is crazy. Oh yeah, I mean it's not something very, anyways, but it works. The form works. Okay, handle change, e target, okay, the size. So whenever we click on the submit button, now we should call another method which is gonna submit the form. So To do that, we will have on click this dot login, like this. And let's create this login method. So we have login, we grab the event like this, and we have prevent default form submission, and then here we have fire off. Actually, let's not forget to import Firebase here. So we import fire from config/fire. So we use it here, fire.off. Now here we'll have sign in with email and password. So we have sign in with email and password, and of course 2 parameters. The first one is this state email, and the second one is this state password. Alright, and then before here and after we have then, and no, it's not then, it's catch. So if it catches any errors, then here we will update the state. So we have set state, and here we have fire errors, and we update the state with the error dot message, like these fire errors, error messages. And then we'll do the same thing as we did for the register. We will have a let variable, so have let notification, and here we check actually this state dot fire errors. If this is true, then we output, we have a div class name. So what we got there, error, and then here we have this state dot fire errors, like this. Otherwise we output null. So I'm gonna grab this function, this variable, and I will paste it right here. Okay, there's an error. What's the error? Fire has already been declared. Okay, so wait. Okay, so I imported it twice. Oh my gosh. Okay, if I go back and type in something here, actually admin and the password, click enter, there's an error, sign in with email and pass is not a function. Probably misspelled something here. Okay, fire off, sign in with email and password. Okay, I misspelled it, as already said. Let's go back, click enter. One more time. Password is invalid where the user does not have a password. Really? I just registered this user. Admin mail. Okay, let me create another one. So I'm gonna have John. Okay, now click exit. Sign in. Click John. Click enter. Okay, so it works. I just forgot the password for the first user. Okay, so the login system works, the registration system works, we have the exit button, So what's left now is the let me refresh that. So what's left now is to add transactions, to add the functionality for the transaction system, um, and you know, to make all those functionalities and store them in a database. So after this, what you want to do is just click on the real-time database, and here you want to create a database. United States in my case, just click whatever it offers you by default. Click enable. Oh wait, start in test mode. What's that? Yeah, start in test mode. Just click here. Anyone with your database reference will be able to view it. So click enable. This is taking a while, but after that, it's gonna generate a database, a real-time database like this. And then from here we can start our tracker functionality working from the dashboard. So I'm just gonna log in using John's account. Wait. Click enter, and from here I'm gonna open my VS Code, and I'm gonna go to actually don't need the login anymore. I don't need the register anymore. I don't need the fire anymore. I don't need the login CSS anymore. I do need the tracker. So here's where I will continue. But there's just one thing I forgot to do in the main.js file. So so what I want to do here, I want to add a spinner, because if I refresh the page, so if I refresh the page and there is like a I don't know, it takes a while until the data comes from the Firebase database, then I want to show a spinner. You know, here I want to show a spinner, and the spinner is gonna spin here on the screen until we get the data from Google Firebase. So to do that, in the main.js file, in our render function, right below this switcher variable, I'm going to add an if statement. So the if statement is gonna look like this. I'm gonna have if this state dot user equals 1. That means if the user is 1 from our state, that means the user is not doesn't have any data from Google Firebase. You know, it's by default like this, and we don't have any data from there. So in this case, I am going to have a return, and here I'm going to return a div class name main block, which is the same one as this one from here. Okay, div here, main block, and then I'm going to have a div class name, and this is gonna be the spinner, like this. Alright, and in the spinner here, I'm gonna have an image, so there's gonna be img source, and we assign the spinner. We don't have this one yet. We should import this image in the on the top of this file, but I'm just adding it here first. Spinner, and then we have an alt tag, spinner, class name, img spinner, and just close this tag. So I was saying that we should import this spinner. Let's go on the top of this file, and this spinner, actually this image comes from you can grab it from my source code. Let's see, so if we go to GitHub, you will have this link in the description, and this repository is going to be public. Just click on source, and there's going to be a new, sorry about that guys, my internet is really slow tonight. I don't know why, but it's really slow. So okay, so I have a folder assets, and let's create this folder in our source folder. So in our source folder, we create a new folder assets. All right, let's open it, and this is the loader.gif. It's an animation, so I'm gonna open it from here, and I will save it in that assets folder. Wow, my internet is really slow. Okay, so this is how it looks like. So I'm just gonna right click on it, save image as, and I'm gonna go to this C XAMPP htdocs. This is my folder, source assets, and I will save it there. Alright, I'm just gonna close it, open my VS Code, and we have the loader. I have it here. Right, so just here I'll just type in import spinner from let's say we go back one step, we get assets slash loader.gif, like this. Let's save it. Let's make sure we don't have any errors. We see the spinner works, which is good. It's kind of big though, and what we should do now is we should add some styling to the spinner class and to the img spinner class. So let's go to our main CSS file, and here below our error class, I'm gonna add spinner, and then here padding 10 pixels, and then a background color, I don't know, let's do F EA, and we have a border. Wait, Jesus Christ, no, this is not the one. Spinner, we don't want to add so much stuff here because we already use this main block. Okay, so here we'll just add a display table, and margin, let's do 0 and auto, and then here we have spinner, and the next class is img spinner. Make sure you don't misspell them, make sure they match. This name from here matches with this one, you know, and this one from here matches this one. Alright, and then here we just add a max width of 30 pixels. So if I save it now, go back and refresh now, it looks much better. Okay, we have this added here, we have the spinner, so I'm gonna close the main CSS file. I'm not gonna need that anymore. Here I am not going to do, I think I'm done with this file too, so I'll just close it. I will open, let's see, I have just a tracker.js file, and I want to add another file here, which is going to be the tracker.css. Here I'm gonna add the styling, you know, the CSS files and stuff like that. So now I'm going to import this file here in the tracker. Import tracker.css. Right, okay, so we have it like this. We have the fire. Right, now here we want to have a let's see, we're actually building now the dashboard. So we're building a dashboard here. You probably don't see I had the previous tab with the demo. I don't have that anymore because whenever I started to work on the tracker.js file, this is actually a different day. This is the second night because I had to stop last night because I was so tired, and I don't have that demo anymore, but we should build that dashboard right here. So to do that, we should add the form and the latest transactions block. So we will add that in the return function right here. Alright, return, you know what, I'm just gonna delete everything I have here because there's gonna be a lot of stuff here, a lot of UI stuff and things like that. So The first div, so return. So here the first div we will have is a div class name, tracker block. So this is gonna be the main block of the whole dashboard. And then there's gonna be another div class name, and this is gonna be a welcome. And here we will have a span, and in this span we will have hi, let's say username. For now, let's just leave it like this. And we will also have that exit button, the one I just deleted. So we'll have button class name exit on click event, and here we are calling this dot logout. Alright, and button is gonna say exit, like this. Alright, and then below this div we will have another div class name, and this is gonna be the current money in our account. So we will have total money. Alright, and here we'll have $sign, and let's put just the hard-coded 145. Alright, and now below here is the new transaction block. This is where the form will be. So we have div class name, and we have new transaction block, and here we will have a new div class name, new transaction block. Alright, and then in this new transaction we have the form, add new transaction form, and here we'll have an input. We have input, just close it here, and then we have a few attributes here. We have a placeholder, and this is saying transaction name, and then we have type text, and then we have name. Oh, it's gonna be name, bro. Name, transaction name, like this. Alright, and then below here we will have another this is gonna be actually a div class name. Here we will have input group, like this, and in this input group we will have the transaction type, and we will have the amount of money. So the first one is going to be a drop down menu with a transaction type. So we'll have select name type, and here we have the options. So we have option value 0. I was like this 0, and this is gonna say type, and then this one we have the second one expense, and the type is gonna be expense. Alright, and then the deposit. Alright, deposit, Victor, deposit, bro, deposit. And below this select tag we will have another input type. It's basically the same thing from here, so I'm just gonna copy and paste it over here. So placeholder, it's gonna say price, text, and the name price. Alright, and then what else we have here? we've got the form, and let's also add a button here for the submit. We have a button, and this button is gonna say, we'll have a plus sign, add transaction, and here's gonna be of course an on click event, but for now let's just add a class name, and the class name is gonna be add transaction, like so. Okie dokie, okie dokie, okie dokie. I'm gonna save it. Let's just see how this looks like. It looks like this because we don't have any CSS or anything like that. And so what I want to do now is below our button we have button form div. So this div is this the new transaction block. Now below here I want to add a new class name, which is going to be the transaction latest transaction. So we'll have div class name latest transactions, and here we will have a p tag. This is gonna say latest transactions, and then below we'll have a list, and then here we'll have our transactions. So the first one is gonna be, I don't even know, okay, let's just do the first one. Here we'll have a transaction, so we'll have a div, and the first one is going to be transaction name, so let's say ATM deposit. Let's just have it like this, and then the next one is going to be the transaction price. Let's see, so we'll have transaction price, so let's just put here $5. Okay, li div but let's put, like, for example, if this is a deposit, then we want to add a plus in the front, and okay, let's just leave it like this for now because we will have to add dynamic stuff. This sign is gonna change whenever we add the dynamic stuff. So okay, we have the UL and everything here, it's good. Excellent. We have the UL, CDs here. Okay, so this is all we have for this for the return function, so I'm gonna save it. We'll go back. So this is how it looks like without CSS. Now let's go ahead and add the CSS. So in our checker.css file, let's start with the checker block. This is a class, and in this checker block we will have a box sizing first, border box, and then we have padding 20 pixels, and then we have width, and the width is 100%, and then we have max width as 350 pixels, and then we have margin 100 pixels on top and out on the sides, on top and on the bottom, and we have also display table, and that's it. The next class is the welcome class. Next one is this one. Alright, so here we just have color white, display flex, and justify content center. Oh, actually, justify content, let's do space between. Space in between, so we will just align everything. One's gonna be going to the left, one to the right. So here we have margin 0, and we will have a text shadow. It's gonna be 0 pixels, 5 pixels, 3 pixels, and we have the color. It's gonna be 29, 29, 29, kind of black color. 29, 29. Now let's save it. Let's see what we've got here. So we have this here, the text shadow. We don't have any color in the background yet because this doesn't have a background. So let's just keep going. The next one is the total amount, total money. So let's put this in here. Let's make this text color white. Font size 20 pixels. Margin 0 on top, 0 on the sides, just 10 pixels on the bottom, and we'll have a text shadow. Text shadow is gonna be the same as this one from here, like this. Okay. Next is the new transaction. We have new transaction block, but let's just start with the new transaction. This is gonna be just like a separator for now. So here below we have new transaction, and this new transaction is getting most of the stuff. We have box sizing, border box. We have text align center. We have color, and the color is 42F9C, like this. It's a blue, like Victor, don't be sleeping, Victor. And display table, and we have a width 100%. What else, Victor? What else do we want to add? I want to add a border radius 5 pixels. I want to add a background color white. I want to add a border 0. I want to add padding 10 pixels. I want to add margin 0 on top, 0 on the sides, and 10 pixels on the bottom. I want to add a font size of 15 pixels, and I want to add a box shadow. So this is gonna be 0, 4 pixels, 8 pixels, 0 RGBA, and RGBA will have 0, 0, 0, 0.2, and the second part is gonna be 0, 6 pixels, 20 pixels, 0 RGBA, and here we have 0, 0, 0, 0.19, like this. Okay, if I save it and if I go back here, we can see that the styling is a little bit looks a little bit better. But now let's add the styling for our form, for this button, and so to do that we should add the new transaction, same class, new transaction, and we have input input, and then we have type text, and then we have input for the select. Okay, and here we have width 100 pixels. We have box sizing, border box. We have border 1 pixel, solid, kind of grayish, and we have a font size, let's say 13 pixels. We have padding 7 pixels. Okay, and here I want to remove the focus, the outline none on from the focus. So I'll copy this stuff from here, I'll paste it here, and here we'll continue with focus like this, focus, and here I want to put outline none like this, outline none. Alright, let me save it, let's see how it looks like. Okay, so this is how it looks like for now, but I want to make the type and the price in one line. Alright, and that's why I added here input group. So I have the input group, and this one is display flex, and justify content center. Okay, so now they are in one line, which is great. Now the next thing is the add transaction button. So we've got this here, input price is done. Okay, add transaction button. Add transaction button. This one is gonna get the text, align center, color white, border radius 3 pixels, background color, let's say 425 F9C, blue, gonna make it kind of blue, border 0, margin on top 5 pixels, and no, on top margin 5 pixels, and on 0 on the side and 0 on the bottom. But the padding is gonna be 5 pixels on top, on the bottom, and then pixels on the side. And then there's also gonna be a font size of 15 pixels and a cursor pointer like this. So I'm gonna save it, and here that's the way it looks like now. This is how it looks like. Alright, we have all this stuff in place. Now it's time for the latest transactions block. So let's go next. Actually, I want to add a hover over styling for this one, and I will add just the background color, and the background color is gonna be darker blue, so I'm gonna have 27 41 77 like this. And also I want to remove the focus outline, so I'm gonna have outline none. Okay, so let's see, bam bam bam. Okay, that's good. Next, I said that it's the latest transactions class. Okay, latest transactions class. Here we will start with the margin 10 pixels 000, with just 10 pixels on top. Background color is gonna be white. Padding 10 pixels on all the sides. Border radius 5 pixels. A border radius 5 pixels. Box shadow 0 4 pixels, 8 pixels, 0 RGBA, and here we will have, let me see, RGBA. Just wanna crop everything from here because it's the same shadow. We don't spend so much time. Bam, just paste it here like this. Done. Okay, let's see how it looks like. Okay, it looks like this. Now let's add some styling for this stuff. And the next thing is we add some styling for the p tag. So here we have a font weight bold, Okay, we have padding 0.055 pixels. We have margin 0, font size 13 pixels, and bordered bottom is gonna be 1 pixels, solid DDD, like this, DDD. And we want to add the UL list. There's gonna be a list here, so list style none, and we have padding 0 and margin 0 as well. We want to add some styling for the ULLI, that's the list items. So here we'll have a border bottom. The border bottom is gonna be 1 pixel solid DDD. I like to say DDD. It's gonna be a padding 5 pixels on top and the bottom, and then 0 on the sides. A display flex and the justify content space in between. And the last child shouldn't have a border on the bottom, so we have last child like this, and the last child has a border bottom of 0, and the padding is 5 pixels, 0 and 0. Okay, let's save it, let's go back. So this is how it looks like now. Alright, so it's pretty much, let's see what else we have. The UL, okay, we have the styling for everything we had here. Now we will have a few more classes. Actually, let's do one more class because we have this exit button, this one. So let's add the styling for that. Exit, let's say a background color white, border 0, border 0, border radius 3 pixels, 3 pixels, color red, cursor pointer, and the box shadow the same thing as we have here. So let's just copy this stuff and paste it here like this. Let's save it, let's take a look. Okay, so that's the way it looks. Now I want to add a hover styling, and the hover is gonna be just we're just gonna change the background color to F1. Okay, alright. I mean, it's fine. Not a big difference, but it's fine. It's fine. Okay. Alright, let's just stay here. Now in our checker.js file here, we want to start storing all this data from this form in a state, and then from there just add the data to our Firebase database to here. So we have the Firebase imported here. We want to add the state now. So let's do state, and we assign a new object, and the state is gonna have transactions, and this is gonna be an empty array, and then we'll have the money. It's how much money we have in account, and then we want to add the state for our fields. Alright, this is gonna be the transaction name, empty by default, transaction type, empty by default, price, empty by default, and we will have the current user ID. So I want to grab that from the database. So if we go to authentication tab, Come on, Mr. Internet. Come on, Mr. Okay, so here we have the user UI, user ID. So I want to store this also in the state. I want to store it together with the transactions. So in this way, we will know which user has which transactions. And that's why I want to have here a current user ID, and I will assign the so remember, this is a predefined Firebase methods and functions. So we'll have auth dot current user dot UID. So that's how I'm gonna store the user ID in the state. So this is actually, if I save it, if I go back to the tracker and click on the components and then click on the tracker, I see the current UID. I get this, which is ending on with 0 and 3. So if I look here, 0 and 3, it's this user, which is John. And here's it's supposed to be John, but we don't output the name dynamically yet. So we will do that here now. But this is the state we have. Transactions, here's the array where we will save all these transactions. Okay, so what I want to do next is I want to add this on change events. Okay, first of all, let's do it here. Where is the username? I want to output the user, kind of the username. User display. I'm not sure if I can do that just like this. Current UI, this state, transactions. Yeah, so let's go to our render function, and here we'll have a variable, so it's gonna be var current user, and we assign fire dot auth dot current user, like this. Easy peasy. So we just get this from here, and we go here, where's our username, and we just put curly brackets, we put current user dot display name. So if I save it, I go back, I get the John here. Right, so this works. John is here, our name is dynamically. Okay, next let's add some we will create a new method here below our logout, and this is gonna be handle change method, and we will grab the input, we'll grab the event, and we will update the state, this set state, and here we will have input, and we will have e.target.value. This is a tricky one, so e.target.value. Okay, so we will check, because here if you pay attention to the type, we have a 0 value, so we want to kind of skip this value. We don't want to assign 0 to our state, to the type state. So we'll have kind of like an if statement. Is this if the value of the field that's currently calling the handle change function, if it's different than 0, then we assign the e.target.value. Otherwise, we assign an empty string. Okay, so let's use this one now in our fields. So wherever we have our input, we can actually add it below the name. Here we will have, first of all, we will have the value. There's gonna be this state dot transaction name, and then we will have on change, dude, on change, and we call this handle change, and here we put transaction name. Transaction name like this. So let's save this. Okay, there's an error. Okay, input is not defined. Input is not defined. Where do we have input? Input in the checker, line 22 and 24. 22 input. Did something wrong here. What's going on here? Okay, I forgot this needs to be an error like this. Okay, so now it works. Let's go back here. Let's go back here. We have this here. Let's check the component. So if I type in here in the transaction name, transaction name needs to change as well. Okay, so it works. All right, that's good. Let's do the same thing for the other two fields. So I'm gonna copy everything from, these two lines, and I will paste them below. I want to paste them here, except here it's gonna say transaction type, and transaction type, and then here where the price is, we will say just the price, like this. So let's save it. Let's make sure everything works fine. Takes a while. Okay, so we have the components. Let's make sure the transaction name works. Okay, it's good. Type expense, deposit. Okay, if I choose type, it's assigning an empty string because we put that if statement, and the price 15. Okay, so everything works fine. Now let's work on the submit button. So here we have this class. We want to add an on-click event, and this on-click event is gonna call a method which is gonna be the add new transaction. So let's do that. We have parentheses first, an arrow, and then we have Victor. We have this dot add new transaction. Add new transactions, so we don't add any parameters. Okay, now we have to add this method, and this method is an important method. It's a big method here. Okay, add transaction. Add transaction. We want to add that. I don't even know. Let's do it here below the handle change. So let's put a comment. And we have add transaction, no parameters because we have everything saved in the state. So first thing we want to do here is I want to grab the transaction names. We'll have const here. So just to avoid typing in all the time this state, transaction name, this state, transaction type, this state, transaction, this state, I'm just gonna put just the transaction name like this, transaction name, and then transaction type, and then transaction, what else? Transaction, no, it's just the price. What else we have? Current user ID and the money, like this. So now here I'm gonna use them. First of all, we will have a validation. Then the validation is gonna be an if statement, and it's gonna check if transaction name and transaction type and price and current user ID and money. We can actually skip the money though, can skip that. Okay. We can also skip this user ID actually. Just leave it like this. And okay, so we get that. Now here we will have a const. So we have const, and we will take a we will assign all the transaction. We'll take like kind of like a backup state. So we'll have backup state, and we assign this state transactions. So we assign everything we have in our transaction state, and then using this backup state, we want to push to this. This becomes an array, so we want to push to this array a new record. So we use the push function, push, and here we push the ID, because our transaction is gonna have an ID. It's gonna have a name, type, a price, and the user ID. So we'll have ID, and it's gonna be backup state length +1, and then the name is gonna be a transaction name, and then the type, it's gonna be transaction type, and then the price, it's gonna be price, and the user ID, it's gonna be current user ID, current UID, like this. Now below here we will have a new, so now we will have a new record in the backup state. Let's actually console log just to see what we have in this backup state. Okay, so it seems like we have an error, unexpected token, JavaScript, blah, blah, which one? 41 plus. Okay, so I forgot to add +1 here. Alright, let's save it. Let's go back. So let's click on the console. Let me actually refresh everything. On the console, let's add a new transaction, price 50. And if I click add, actually add new transaction. We want to actually should prevent the submission. So here, you know what? There's a trick. I'm gonna remove this button from the form. So so this button on submit the form. So I'll just crop it from there and paste it right below the form. So let's save it. Let's go back now. Alright, let's see. Deposit 15. Add transaction. So here's what we have now in the backup state now. So we have an entry, a new entry, user ID 1, name, price, type, expense, user ID. Alright, so now I want to store this in the Firebase database here. And to do that, let's go back to our here, and where we have the console log, let's get rid of the console log. And here let's send this to Firebase. So we'll get Victor fire dot database, alright, dot ref, and now here in this ref we are naming a child, a parent kind of thing, like a table, if I can say a table, if you know MySQL, but it's not a table, it's just a node. So we have transactions slash current UID, alright, and then we have push. So we want to push to this node the following information. So here we have ID, we have backup state dot length, right? We want to push the name of the transaction, so we have transaction name. We also have a transaction type, so let's do here type, and we also have price. Okay, and we also have the user ID, which is current UID. Then we have dot then here, parenthesis, we have a parameter data. All right, data. So here, then if it's successful, if the callback successful, so I have a comment callback. So if everything was sent successfully, let's console log this, and let's say success callback. And here we want to update the state. So in this way, if we update the state, we will be able to output the information to the screen in this block here. So here, let's update the state, and let's say this set state, and we will have transactions, and we update we assign to the transaction state the backup state, because the backup state has the new transaction, also the money. So here we will have if the transaction type is deposit, so if the transaction type equals deposit, then money, plus we have parse float, just to make it a number, price. All right, otherwise money minus parse float price, like this. So this is how it looks like: transaction type, deposit, money, parse float, otherwise money minus. So we either, if it's a deposit, that means we add money, so we just add the money, the price. If it's not, we just adjust it from there. Okay, the next thing is we want to kind of like clean the transaction name, transaction type, and the price. So we'll have transaction name becomes empty, transactions type T, and the price empty as well. And then after this, then if there's any errors, if it catches any errors, then we want to output that in the console. Error callback, we have console log error. So we're outputting the error in the console. Okay, so this seems to be, I mean, let's check it. So let's save it, let's go back. We don't get any errors, which is good, but let's see. This is empty now, so let's add transaction, deposit, price 15, add transaction. So we have error undefined. Okay, first of all is call success callback, but then okay, so we have the transaction here though. We have the transaction like this. This is user ID. So if you remember here, we did transactions / current UID. So that's what we have. We have transactions. This is the user ID. I open this one. This is a node that's being generated randomly and uniquely by the push function. All right, and we open this one. So we have here ID, name, price, type, and the user ID. Okay, now we should figure out what's going on here, why the error return undefined here, because we shouldn't get this stuff from here. Okay, we have then error, Okay, not then, it needs to be catch. This needs to be catch. So if I save it, we go back here, let's refresh, and let's add a new transaction. Let's say ATM deposit. Let's deposit 150, add transaction. We get just the success callback. If we go back here, we have the same user, except we have a new transaction, which is ID 150, blah 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 blah. This is actually wrong. We should have ID 2 now here. So let's see what we did wrong here. What we did wrong. Backup, Firebase database, backup state length. I don't know, let's try to add this +1 here. Oops. Let's see if it works. So let's add a new ATM to deposit 200, click add, callback successful. We get here, open this one. Okay, so the ID is 2. Now let's get rid of everything from here. I will delete everything. Just start everything fresh to make sure the ID is increasing correctly. Also, let's also make sure this works. This is dynamic. So let's go back to where we have the amount of money here, and here we should replace this one with the this state. So let's do this state dot money like this. So we go back, we have 0. Now if we deposit 250, add, we get 250 here. So let's go back here, we get a transaction, the UID, ID2. Something is wrong here though. Something is definitely wrong. Let's try one more time. Blah blah blah. Deposit 15, add. Okay, so we have here ID 3. I think I know why, because we've got this stuff in the tracker. So here in the transactions we have already 2 transactions. You see here there is 1 and there is 2, ID 1 and ID 2. Like this. So let me refresh. Okay, let's delete everything from here, and let's remove this one from here, where the Firebase, wherever we insert this length +1. Let's save it. I'm gonna go back and refresh this, and let's add the first one. So we have deposit 15, add transaction. Let's go here. Okay, we get 1. So if I add another deposit of 15, click add and go back here and open the next one, ID 2. And in the tracker state we have 1 and 2. Okay, so everything works fine now. It was just because we have the transactions in the state also and in the Firebase, and it was counting from the state, the ID from the state, the length. Okay, so it seems like we have them here. Now we want to output all the transactions here. So to do that, we should create a new component, and let's name it transaction. So to do that, we should add a new folder in our tracker, and this is the last component, guys. Okay, so it's gonna be transaction, and here we add a new file, transaction.js, and this file is gonna be like a functional component. So we'll just import React from React, and then we have const transaction we get props, we will get props here, and this is going to be a functional component. Return, it's going to be just tr, and we will export default transaction like this. And now let's import this transaction in our tracker. Let's import transaction from transaction/transaction. Okay, so now we will use this transaction here where we have our list, like here. We will replace this section with a mapping. So let's delete everything from the UL. Now here we will have curly brackets, and we will loop through our transaction state. So we will have object dot keys parentheses. We have this state dot transactions. All right, we will have dot map parentheses. The parameter is ID parentheses. The parameter is ID, curly brackets, just parentheses like this, and here we call the transaction component. So we have transaction, but this component is gonna has props because we're sending props there. So we'll have type, and this is gonna be this state dot transactions ID key dot type. Okay, we will send the type, the name, and the price. So we'll have name, price. Let's replace them here as well. Price and the name. Okay, alright, we have them in place here. We call this transaction this new component, so we'll save it. Let's go back, and we don't have anything, but if I add a new transaction, we're gonna get TR. So if I add a new one, deposit, for example 50, we get TRT. But if we refresh it, we should add the LI tag. So in our transactions here, let's get rid of everything in the return function, and let's add a LI. This is the list tag, and here we have div, and here we'll output the transaction name. So we have props dot name. We also have the transaction type, but here we will have, it's gonna be like an if statement, and here we will check props type. If the props type equals to deposit, then we will output a span class name, and we have to add this class name in the CSS file. Deposit. Alright, and here we will output plus, it's actually going to be space plus curly brackets props dot price, like this. Alright, otherwise we will output a span class name expense, like this, and here's gonna be minus and then curly brackets props dot price. And we put this expense span class name just so we make it either red or green. If it's a deposit, it's gonna be green, so this amount is gonna be green. If it's an expense, it's gonna be red. So let's save it. Let's go back. Now we have them like this, the transactions. Let's add colors to this stuff here. So in our tracker.css, let's go below the exit, and let's add these classes. So we have expense class, color red, and we have deposit, color green. Let's save it. Let's go back. So we see if it's an expense, it's 50, and if it's a deposit, if it's expense is red, if deposit is green. So we have here how many transactions now? One, two. Let's get rid of all of them. Let's refresh this. Okay, and let's add a new transaction. Let's say ATM deposit, type deposit. Let's add 500. Click add transaction. We get the transaction here. We get the amount of money. The amount of money in the account has been, the balance has been updated. We go back here to our database. We get the information here. Now if I add a new transaction, coffee expense, coffee is $5, Starbucks coffee obviously. So I had coffee minus $5. It's adjusting from the mine amount of money. We get ID 2, coffee expense, price. Okay, this works good, but now if I refresh this page, the state is gets updated and the transactions disappear from the state, but we have them here and we don't see them on the screen. So let's just output the data from the Firebase real-time database into our dashboard. So to do that, let's go back to the transaction, checker.js, and below our add new transaction method, we will add a new method which is going to be component will mount. If you don't know what component will mount is, I recommend you go read more documentation, but I would just say that this is a life cycle. Component will mount. This life cycle fires whenever this life cycle is fires before the app is being mounted. So component will mount is here. I'm gonna get the state. So first of all, const, I'm gonna have current UI money this state, const, wait a second. Okay, the error is here because I forgot to add, Jesus Christ. This needs to be a curly bracket. Okay, alright, now makes sense. Sorry about that, guys. It's really late. Okay, so here we will have a variable, let variable, total money, and we will assign the money from the state to this variable. This is going to be easier for us to work with. And then we will have a const. We will get a backup of the state. So we have this state dot transactions. So we will assign all the transactions from the state, and then we will take a snapshot from the database, and we will assign everything we have in the database to this backup state, and then to the transactions. We will assign everything to the transaction state, and then after that we'll just it's gonna get outputted on the screen. So to do that, let's do like this: fire.database fire.database.ref, and we want to grab everything from the transactions slash current user ID dot once, and we get the value. We get the value like this, Alright, and then here we are we're making like a snapshot. Alright, like this, and then having this snapshot, let's console log it just to see what we have in the snapshot. Like this. Let's go to the console. So if we refresh it, component will mount fires. This is a life cycle whatever. But here if we look into this stuff, this is what we have: the reference, we have the path, transactions, and the user ID, and we have all the data that we need to grab from the real-time database. Right, so using this snapshot, now let's get rid of this console, just make it comment, and now here below let's add let's loop through this snapshot. So for each we have child snapshot, like this. Don't forget semicolons. Okay, so we get each child, and then here we have the total money. We update the total money, and to update the total money we will get the we will check first child snapshot dot val dot type. If this is equal to deposit, then here we have parse float, and we get the child snapshot dot val, and we have dot price, right, plus total money. Otherwise we will adjust it, so we will do the same thing. It's gonna be total money minus parse all this stuff from here, parse float child snapshot val price, like this. And this way we will update the total amount of money from the state. Okay, and then here we will just push the value from the Firebase database to the backup state, and then after that we just update the local state. So here we have backup state dot push parentheses curly brackets, and here we update we push the data from the Firebase. So here we have ID child snapshot dot val dot ID. Okay, so we will have one for the name, type, price, and user ID. So here we're gonna have name. Let's do name, type, and price, and the user ID. User ID. So we assign this new object to the backup state. Now let's get out of the for each loop, and let's update the state. So here we have this set state, and we update the transactions with the backup state object, and then the money get updated as well. So we have total money. Okay, let's save it, let's go back, and now we get all the transactions from the Firebase. If I refresh, we get the money, because 500 minus 5 is 495. We have ATM deposit and coffee. Actually here list should have a unique key, so we forgot to add a key to the li tracker in the transactions here, if I'm not mistaken. Where is that? Actually list should have a unique key prop. Each child in the list should have a unique child. Okay, I think it's this one here. Let's add key and props dot, what do we call it here? Okay, let's go back here. We can add this ID here actually. Yeah, let's add the key here. So we get key ID, and let's remove this from here. Save it. Let's go back. Let's refresh. Okay, so we don't get that error anymore. This comes from Firebase. This is just because we are using the staging site. Okay, so this stuff works. This works fine. We have 2 transactions here. Now let's add a new transaction. Let's say I'm gonna buy, I bought what did I buy? I bought a tea. Expense, and the tea is just $1. Add transaction. T minus 1. We get here, open this one, ID 3. We get this one 3. If I refresh the page, we get the stuff. Now let's try, we are logged in with John. Let's try the second user. Log out. You know, if we refresh, everything works fine. The second one was admin. Click enter. Okay, the wrong password. Disabled due to too many failed login attempts. You can immediately, wow, all this stuff comes from Firebase, guys. So like all these things are, I don't know why these errors are popping up. I guess just because it comes from the Firebase package. Can't really do much about them. Wow, so it looks like they blocked this account. Let's register another account. Let's create another one. Let's say I'll say Victor, admin 1, and the password. Click register. Okay, I have my name here, 0 balance, database still empty. You know, we have just 1 user. So if we refresh it here, we can see the admin 1, which is just registered, is ending, the ID is ending in 12. So if I add a new transaction, ATM deposit, let's do a deposit of 999, add transaction. We go back here, we can see the new ID here. It's a new node with the user ID I just registered. So if I open this one and I check, the transaction starts from ID 1 and the data is here. Now we can add an expense. Let's say what can you buy? We bought a bread expense, and the bread was $2. Click add transaction, minus $2, and we have it here. ID 2, bread, price 2, expense, blah blah blah, user ID. Alright guys, it's a long tutorial. I know it's a long tutorial, but I hope this was useful for you. If you have any questions, leave them in the comments. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up, subscribe for my channel, and I will see you guys in the next videos.